Welcome back to the Reboot Era, the podcast where we turn layoffs into launchpads and career pivots into power moves. Before we dive in, a quick heads up for job seekers. I've partnered with jobhire.ai, a platform that will apply to jobs for you, even while you're sleeping. This August 2025, you can get 30% off any plan with code DRAY30, DRAY30. Check the footer of this episode for the details and the link to make sure you get your discount. And yes, if you don't get an interview in 15 days, you'll get your money back. Now let's get into the episode. Today's guest, Patrick Lyons, is basically a Swiss Army knife of ambition. Mechanical engineer, Microsoft veteran, fitness coach, improv performer, content creator, and soon-to-be natural bodybuilding competitor. Oh, and did I mention he's been laid off twice in 6 months and somehow turned it into the most productive, passion-filled season of his life? We'll dive into how Patrick built multiple income streams, stayed resilient through back-to-back corporate layoffs, and still finds time to walk 30,000 steps a day, crush improv sets, and coach clients all over the world. Whether you're job hunting, building your side hustle, or just trying to squeeze more out of your 168 hours each week, this conversation will light a fire under you. Let's get into it.
My name is Patrick Lyons. I majored in mechanical engineering at the University of Texas at Austin, where I also got certificates in both business and computer science. And since graduating from college, I have worked at Microsoft for more than 6 years. And I started as a mechanical sourcing engineer, transitioned to product management, and had a brief stint in program management as well. But outside of Microsoft and outside of my internships and on top of all my schoolwork back in college, I've worked as a fitness coach for over 10 years now. And I launched my own business 7 years ago called the Lyons, which is my custom one-on-one online fitness coaching program. And I also run 3 other fitness-related businesses as well. And then on top of all of that, I do daily content creation. I do acting, improv. I'm an author, speaker, world traveler. So happy to dive into anything that you're curious about.
I want to talk about all of it. We don't have a lot of time, but I want to talk about all of it. So first and foremost, I like to chat a little bit about how we met, because again, people might ask about that on the podcast or wonder, how do I meet people? And prior to 2 weeks ago, I had no idea who you were. We met on LinkedIn. Do you want to share a little bit about what recently happened to you that prompted me to might see a post?
Yeah, so I was recently laid off from Microsoft for the second time in about 6 months. My first layoff was informed October of 2024. The layoff was officialized December of 2024. I then began the interview process the exact same month with a new team. Got the offer for a job in January, just a month later, started in March, laid off in May. So it's like this whole whirlwind of emotions and things happening. But yeah, I got laid off and happened a second time, but both of the times I was really able to kind of power through and weather the storm, to use that metaphor. And that's in large part because of having businesses outside of Microsoft that gave me financial stability and purpose outside of my corporate job. And that story ended up getting picked up by Business Insider, featured on their news site, and that even made it to like the Apple stocks homepage for Microsoft, where it was like a Satya Nadella CEO thing, and then right below it was me, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I saw that post, which was awesome. Now, it wasn't that you got laid off that I was interested in. I really liked the post you made, which was like, am I sad? Yeah. Do I wish I was still there? Yes. But here's the thing. Your job doesn't define you, and you do all these other things. So first and foremost, what did you even do at Microsoft that you were able to pivot so quickly, find a new team? You're a product manager. Is that what your background's in?
Yeah, so I started as a mechanical sourcing engineer, which meant that I was negotiating contracts with suppliers primarily based in Asia that made components for anything from the Xbox to the Surface laptop, the Surface Hub, Surface Pro, all sorts of things in the mechanical realm, or rather, all things in the devices portfolio of Microsoft products. And I was sourcing mechanical componentry. Long story short, that role and every role at Microsoft went remote during COVID. And so I moved back to Texas, found that I was infinitely happier, healthier, and more fulfilled in Texas. Then after COVID was deemed mitigated enough, everyone was forced to go back to Seattle who worked on my team, but I wasn't willing to do that. So I looked for a new role internally that was permanently remote. Found out that pretty much every product manager role at Microsoft is remote. So I interviewed with a bunch of teams in that regard, found my way into Microsoft Teams calling as my team. So kind of like a competitor to Zoom or Google Meet. I was in Microsoft Teams on the calling team. developing software features. And when I say developing, I'm not the one coding it. I'm simply the one laying out the spec and the end-to-end vision, the strategy, the roadmap, and then holding my engineering teams accountable to the work needed to be done. And then to answer your question about how I was able to pivot, um, it was really leveraging the network that I had at Microsoft, where as soon as I got notice of the layoff, I reached out to like every team imaginable that was hiring in the career portal. And then I also reached out to various like mentors and peers of mine and various teams across the company to see if they happened to know the hiring manager personally of any of the roles I was interested in. And then lo and behold, the guy who was my OG mentor, who we'd literally been in a mentorship group with for like 7+ years, directly knew the hiring manager of one particular team. That got my foot in the door, and then I landed the role.
Nice. The power of networking. So
Yeah,
important.
absolutely.
So now, what are you doing? Your posts are lovely. You have 30,000 plus followers on LinkedIn, which is amazing. And you're just so happy. It's like my entire feed is like people who are sad and laid off and struggling. And then it's just your, bright blue eyes, dirty blonde hair, just being like, hey guys, I did this thing today, right? What are you doing? Can you tell us a little bit about the content creation you do?
Yeah. So the way that I approached the layoff was such that I realized I could either kind of wallow in the sadness of not having a job or allowing this to be something that was an attack on my identity or my self-worth or my value. But when I zoomed out, I reflected on the fact that like none of those options were going to help me. They weren't going to help me get a job. They were going to help me feel better. They weren't going to help me do anything in my life. So I chose to view the layoff as an opportunity to really dive deep into the passions that I had. I was already spending an immense amount of time doing the things that I loved. But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to pour all of my time and energy into the things that I love most and the things that maybe I didn't have as much time to do as I would have liked while working a corporate job. So for me, that meant even more time in fitness. I'm a fitness coach. I have been for about 10 years and I'm already working out in the gym regularly, but I decided to just go even harder in that. So after my first layoff, I spontaneously competed in my first natural bodybuilding competition. I was already very lean because I was going on like this human performance optimization journey as an experiment to just see like what level of fitness can I achieve. I got so lean that I was like, you know what? I'm just going to sign up for a competition. And then 4 weeks later, I did it. I won the competition. I qualified for nationals, and that's happening in November of this year. So now it's like all of 2025, in a way, is dedicated to getting in the best shape of my life humanly possible to crush it on stage in November. So that's occupying a lot of my time. And by extension of that, I'm spending even more time walking than I ever have in my life because there's this scientific principle called energy flux. And it's the concept that the more energy you can expend and then the more energy you can intake, the better your body recompositional outcomes, even at the same net energy balance. So what that means is if you were burning 2,000 calories a day and eating 2,000 calories a day, you're going to get some level of body recomp. But if I can double that, and if I can burn 4,000 calories a day, eat 4,000 calories a day, I will achieve better body recompositional outcomes than the person that is eating and working half as much. So I'm basically doing exactly that. So I'm walking 25 to 30,000 steps a day. I'm eating over 4,000 calories a day, and I'm losing weight, which is like a crazy concept that it's even possible to lose weight eating 4,000 calories a day. I'm eating specifically 4,228 calories, down to the exact number. So spending a lot of time in that, and then also spending a lot of time performing in improv comedy shows. I've been doing improv comedy for about 2 years now. I found that that was like the most joyous thing in my life, where it's just like a guaranteed hour or two of laughter every time I do it. I tell people that it's my scheduled laughter in the week. And so yeah, I'm literally performing tomorrow. I'm performing next Thursday, and I'll hopefully be performing all throughout August and September as well. So pouring a lot of time into that, and then just like spending time with friends as much as I can, whether it be going to movie premieres, spending time out on the lake, paddleboarding, game nights, just anything I can. And then I've also found that I love cooking. I've always loved food. Everyone loves food, but I found that it's very therapeutic to actually spend the time to cook the various ingredients that I and then finally, I've spent even more time in the world of content creation. I've always been one to align with brands that I align with or that I share values with. And I've really delved into how can I best partner with these various brands to create content that is mutually beneficial, that will make an income for me, but also help elevate this brand and help them reach their target audience. I'm sure I could go on, but those are some of the many things that I'm spending my time on.
Yeah. I don't know if my audience today is very obsessed with the gym, but I think having healthy habits is really important. So I won't stick too much on the gym component, but you have this business that you started and you do personalize, what you call it, Lion Shred is what you call it?
Yeah, the Lion Shred, because my
The
last
Lion
name is
Shred.
Lyons, so I call it the Lion Shred.
Okay. So if someone's interested and they're like, hey, I have time, I have some money, I want to get shredded. You can't see him, guys, but he's shredded. And they can just reach out. They just go to your website or go to your LinkedIn. Like,
The
how do
best
they?
thing to do, like if people are coming across this via, say, LinkedIn, just DM me on LinkedIn. Or if you're coming across this on any other platform, DM me on Instagram. Instagram is the place where I most easily am available. But to almost make a slight counter to your point, you said that like if someone says, I have the time and I have the money, most people are saying the opposite of both of those things. Most people say, I don't have the time, I don't have the money. My kind of retort to that is often that like we all get the same 168 hours in a week. And outside of even a corporate job, sleeping, eating, and showering, you probably have 50 to 60 hours to work with. It's just a matter of what you do with it. And then on the money side of the equation, I always say that you either invest in your health or you spend on sickness. I would much rather invest in my health than ever be sick. And I haven't been sick in over 6 years now.
Nice. Not even a common cold.
No, not even a common cold. Like there have been like the most moderate of like I feel slightly under the weather, but never enough that like has hindered any of my habits, any of my ability to work, any ability to go to the gym, anything like that.
Nice. I think that a lot of people who listen to this are currently laid off or unemployed, so they probably have the time.
Yeah,
Money,
that's
maybe
true.
not. But I will say over COVID, I also didn't get sick one time. And I think it's because I wasn't near people.
Yeah, that's fair.
But with that, that's great. People will probably or hopefully reach out to at least follow you and follow your journey that you're going on. Now, are your only social medias LinkedIn and Instagram, or those are just the most active?
Those are the most active in terms of reachability, in terms of like DMing me. But I have presence on pretty much every social media platform except for X. I don't
Okay.
have anything against X. I just have never been a natural user of it. So TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, uh, whatever I didn't say there, LinkedIn. Yeah, all of them.
Okay, awesome. Well, hopefully we will link the profiles in the show notes so people can go and follow your journey across multiple different platforms. I haven't been able to check out your other ones. I do see some of the posts that you've cross-posted. And so I will say they're funny and I'm going to check them out probably later tonight and just be like, this guy, it's not oftentimes you find someone who's so into fitness and like, jacked or shredded and funny. They're
Thanks,
usually
man.
one or the other.
I
So
appreciate it.
yeah, it's lovely. Now, with the content creation, can you talk a little bit about what content you create? Is it just about the gym? I mean, I've seen some of it and it looks like, some satire, some funny skits that you do. Do you embed your improv into it? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a mix of kind of all the things that you just said. The way that I have always approached content is I have three content pillars: entertainment, education, inspiration. So with every piece of content I make, I want to do one or more of those things. The entertainment piece is just the idea that a lot of people are living stressed lives. And if I can help them kind of escape from reality for even a brief moment and have that moment of kind of pause and de stressing, then I will gladly offer that, but with undertones of fitness. So I did like this whole series a couple weeks back where I just did these goofy, they call them like Snapchat creeper videos. And it's the idea that like, I am having someone film me, but making it look like it's a candid moment where I'm just like doing something goofy in the gym. And so it just offered like this moment of levity that hopefully made the gym seem less serious to viewers who were coming across it and maybe gave them a laugh. And then on the education piece, I have an in depth knowledge of the science behind all things fitness. And when I say all things fitness, I've researched the science behind at least one new topic every day for the last like 2,500 days or so. So it's spanned well over 10,000 different topics. So you could tell me almost any fitness subject and I could tell you the science about it. It's like I'm trying to make myself into like a human health and fitness chat GPT thing. And so that's all to say that I create a lot of content that is educational in nature, where I break down the science in a way that's hopefully digestible, that can be applied to people's lives. And then finally, inspiration, where I'm just seeking to motivate people to take action. The post I made on Instagram today, the title line is something along the lines of, you were in the driver's seat of your own life, and encouraging people to adopt a mindset of being in the driver's seat, of taking full accountability for your actions and the results that you get, and not using things like your busyness or your circumstances or your genetics or people in your lives as an excuse to not get the results that you would like to achieve. So those are the things I aim to achieve with my content. And to answer your question about if it's all fitness oriented, a lot of it is, but I do also get into other elements of lifestyle and work. So, like, for example, on LinkedIn, I much more bias my content toward things that are applicable to busy working adults. That's why I make so many posts about Microsoft and layoffs and navigating having both a career and a side hustle and things of that nature. But on other platforms, it definitely does air toward fitness.
Thank you for that. Before we venture down more into the questions I have around that, are you looking for a job? Are you still looking for full time work? Is that something you're interested in? Or are you just doing all of your other hustles?
Yeah, so I'm definitely still interested in having a job. I don't necessarily quote unquote need it. I do have a sufficient income from my own businesses that I wouldn't technically need it, but I like having a dual income as an individual, and two, I like having like the health insurance and the benefits. And three, I like the time constraint. And what I mean is when I have those hours of the week occupied by a corporate job, it makes everything else in my life more efficient. It's like everything that I just described, I was essentially doing while working at Microsoft. And I was only able to make that possible because my entire life became so streamlined and efficient while I had a corporate job. And so right now, it's not that I'm not efficient, it's just that I know that I'm definitely less efficient. And it comes down to something that's known as Parkinson's law, which is the idea that work will take up the amount of time that you allot to it. So if you give yourself 8 hours to do something, it'll take you 8 hours. If you give yourself 1 hour to do it, it'll take you 1 hour. So I'd kind of rather be a little bit more compressed so that everything takes a little bit less time. So yeah, I'm actively interviewing. I've been having some great opportunities come my way, thankfully, just via like LinkedIn and LinkedIn optimization and stuff like that.
Well, can't wait to see where you land. And I love the business acumen that you can just quickly spit out because I was just studying. I just got my PMP certification yesterday, actually.
Nice.
And one of the things they talk about is
Congrats.
Parkinson's law. Thank you. And, I feel like it's not a term that everyone in business would just spit out and know, but you just call it out and there was no prep for this show. So you're just on top of it. I love it.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, within my fitness science research, I do extend beyond strictly fitness and get into things like psychological productivity, that sort of thing.
Got it. Okay. So it's relevant for you. Now,
Yes.
one thing you touched on, and you've said it twice now, right? Is about we all have the same hours in a day. Saying that you don't have enough time isn't really a great excuse. It's like, what are you doing with your time? Choosing the things that are valuable to you. And what everyone has those different things that are valuable. But with yourself, having a full time job for a lot of people is enough. You have a full time job, you have kids, and it's like, okay, that's all I have. You're doing so many different things, content creation, you have your own business, you have a full time job when you are working at Microsoft. What does your day look like? What is a structured day for you?
Yeah, good question. So the way that I structure my day is such that I perform the same relative actions and habits in the same order for approximately the same amount of time. And so the reason I lay it out that way, first and foremost, is because a lot of people, if they're trying to think through even just adding one thing, like adding a side hustle, it's like, how do you do that? And my answer is think about all the time that you have before, during, and after work that could be allotted to that. When I say during, I'm talking about, things like lunch breaks or the short, brief stints between meetings and things of that nature. But it's like before my corporate workday begins, that's when I'm doing social media work, where I'm making my posts for the day. I'm checking in with clients. I'm responding to comments on the previous 24 hours of posts or what have you. And then during the workday, maybe on my lunch break or between meetings, maybe there are other client check-ins or questions that clients are sending to me. And so I'll just briefly respond to those because they only take like a minute or two. And then the way that I am super intentional about separating my corporate workday from the rest of my day happens at the end of my corporate workday. So when my Microsoft job or whatever job finishes at say 5 or 5:30, that is the moment where I immediately go to the gym. And the reason for that is I want to have like a mental shift where it goes from corporate workday to rest of my life. Because if you go from like 9 to 5 working a corporate job and then immediately jump into your 5 to 9 working on like your side hustle, your passions, all that sort of stuff, the day can start to feel overwhelming and exhausting and eventually lead to burnout after repeated doing of that order of things. But for me, by ending the workday, immediately going to the gym, it's just like a full removal of myself from the corporate environment, from that headspace. And it honestly allows me to de-stress. Like I love the gym for the feeling that it gives you, especially after, where you just feel kind of like that high from the various, hormones in your brain. And then I come home, I eat dinner, and then begins like all of the other stuff in my life. So that's when I'm processing my client questionnaires. When a client is signed up and I'm making a program for them, I'm going to go through their responses. If I have follow up questions, I'll get back to them. If I don't, I get together or I get the program actually made and sent over to them. That's when I do my actual content creation that's going to be posted the next day, where I'm drafting up the caption, I'm making the video, or I'm selecting the picture or what have you. It's also when I'll do a lot of admin work where I'm like going through emails, various brand deals that I have to address. But all of that happens in that nighttime hour, just because for me, that is where I find myself to be the most productive. I also do darn near everything I can while walking. And that applies to both the corporate workday and the social media stuff. Because what I find is that there is so much of your time that is typically just spent hunched over in a chair doing stuff that you could be doing while actively moving. So for me, that's like calls, meetings, as long as it's like not with an executive where I need to be like the most presentable humanly possible. All of my email work, text, social media, watching videos, doing research, sharing things on my Instagram story, all of that I will do while moving. Because when people hear that I get, 25 to 30,000 steps a day, they're like, how could you ever have the time to do that? Because that literally takes like 5 to 6 hours of your day to get that many steps. And I realized that even habit stacking, that's an absurd amount of time to walk. Not a lifelong habit for me. I'm doing it this year and this year alone. But it's all to say, there's a lot that you can habit stack. And I find that I'm more productive and efficient when I'm on my phone while walking, as opposed to on my phone while like sitting. So yeah, I mean, that's the approximate way in which I go about my day to fit it all in. Oh, the other thing I will say, I'm very intentional about scheduling things in the evening hours related to my passions. Things like improv, whether it's an improv jam, an improv class, an improv performance, because of that idea of Parkinson's law, where if I have a definite commitment from like 7 to 9 p.m., I literally know that everything else on my day, besides like nighttime habits, has to get done before that 7 p.m. Call time. So the best example I have of this is my workouts, where if I know I have to be somewhere else by 7 p.m., my workout that happens, after 5 p.m., after my corporate workday ends, way more efficient. Whereas if I didn't have that 7 p.m. task, the workout would probably bleed over into like 7:30 or even 8 p.m. sometimes, simply because I feel a little bit more less pressured or a little bit less pressured. So I'm actually very intentional about like, I want to have more stuff in the evenings so that I am more efficient the rest of the day.
That is an amazing structure, one
Thank you.
that I am not at yet, but I strive to be like that. And maybe just for 1 year. I don't know if I could do that my whole life, but maybe, who knows?
Yeah.
So with that, I think people might hear that and have the same reaction, right? Like that's insane. And a couple things, you didn't mention, and it's your personal life, so feel free to share what you want. But dogs, cats, animals, do you have any pets? Dating, are you dating? Are you married? Kids, do you have children? Family, when do you see them? Like you mentioned being so strategic and intentional about all the things you're doing, but in the hours of the day that you just explained, I don't even know when you're going pee.
Yeah, no, totally fair. So I definitely fully acknowledge that I have the luxury of not currently having like a wife and kids. And so that obviously gives me way more time. I don't have a cat or dog. That gives me way more time. I see my family typically during the holidays. They live in Dallas. I'm in Austin. So we're about 3 hours apart. So a lot of my relationship emphasis is on like friends that I have here in Austin. And so the way that I go about that is, one, a lot of my friends are at the gym, or they're at improv, or they're at like the weekend things that I will do. Things like game nights, things like improv jams, going to movies, going paddleboarding on the lake. And so I very much do prioritize those, and I actively make an effort to do things with them. But I just simply do them with, I do the things that I would already love to be doing with other people, that sort of thing.
Got it. And do you find friends in those situations rather than finding friends at Starbucks who maybe you don't have that many overlapping, not interests, but specific routine things that you do?
Yeah, very much so. Friendships tend to come from alignment with passions. Like if I think of my best friends, they're the people who are super physically active, super into creative endeavors, whether improv or content creation, and super into travel, just since those are things that I naturally spend time doing.
Got it. Nice. And one question that I was just kind of pondering as you're going, through all of this is, does that change over time, right? Maybe this year you're so focused on the healthy lifestyle, working out, being fit, healthy eating, that you're not going out to restaurants. You're not doing those as many weekend things. And the friend groups you might surround yourself are going to be more of those people in the gym. Does that change next year when you're not as actively working toward a bodybuilding competition and a little bit less time in the gym, more time at improv? Do you hang out with the improv people more?
Yeah, I think that that is absolutely what can and will happen. I have really mentally set myself, I'm like, okay, 2025 is my year of being all in on bodybuilding. And it is to like an absolutely unsustainable degree where like my average workout in the gym is 90 to 120 minutes. And I'm spending 5 or 6 hours a day walking. It's like I'm living my life as a full-time athlete. And it's been really cool and fulfilling to see like what that can lead to, the level of discipline and structure and the results. But yeah, it's like I'm not going to do this forever. It's literally 2025 and then never again. And I say never again completely seriously because I'm still going to keep working out, but I'm never going to do a bodybuilding show again because it's very unhealthy. Like, I don't know how much you or your viewers know, but like, you have to get down to a level of body fat percentage that causes your testosterone levels to be like completely in the tank. Like, it is a very bad thing to do. I'm doing it for the fulfillment of showing what my body is capable of. And then kind of checking it off as like, all right, I hopefully won my natural bodybuilding pro card and then I'm done with it. But yeah, I'm gonna have a lot of extra time after that. Oh yeah, you asked about dating in the previous one. I didn't answer that. I am dating. So that's very much like a priority for me because the one area of my life I feel like I've made the least progress in is in like the romantic relationship department. And it's not that I haven't prioritized it, it's just like I haven't had that much success in it. So I'm applying like even more diligence in that area to like actively try to meet people who I would have alignment with. I'm like, for example, I'm Catholic. So if I could meet a Catholic woman, that'd be ideal. So I'm like going to events that are related to that to see if I can find someone who's faith oriented like I am. But I'm also, meeting people at these various creative endeavors, various gym circumstances, and just seeing like if a vibe is caught. So that is a priority. But realistically, I will have way more time for that after this year when I'm not spending so much time in the gym and walking and that sort of thing.
So to translate, 2025 is the year of bodybuilding, but 2026, you might see Patrick Lyons on The Bachelor. We haven't dis-
So, okay, funny thing about that is I have actually interviewed with probably like 6 different reality dating shows, but I don't want to do any of them because I came to terms with the idea that like, 1, the odds of me actually finding someone on these shows, very low, and 2, that then becomes really awkward for like my family and my future partner to like see me with, on these dates. So I'm just like, I can't.
it will just be your own version of The Bachelor. It will be
Yes.
you're spending more time on your dating. And it was less of if you are dating, and it was more of when do you find the time to date, right? Are those dates? Because some people out here are going to be single. They're going to be listening to this and be like, wow, I feel like I have to give up my love life in order to focus on finding a new job or prioritizing the gym. So, when are those dates? Is it the weekends? Is that when you're spending the time to go on those dates or find people and connect? Are you doing it every day if you can, and it doesn't matter where you are?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, to the point I was making earlier about like the Parkinson's law and giving myself things that are like 7 to 9 p.m. time frame, that's typically when I have those dates because it's like if I know that I got to be at a date or I got to pick up a girl at 7 p.m., that means I got to get it done with everything else before then. Everything else becomes more efficient. So, that's my norm is like I try to do it on a weekday in that time frame of like 7 to 9 p.m. Because I often will have like improv performances or jams on Saturday and Sunday nights. So those can often be taken up. So weekdays tend to work better. But yeah, I think there's absolutely time for it. You just got to make everything else fit into place.
I like that. So, do you have online friends? Do you, in your creator community or your fitness community, people who you stay in touch with and you network that way as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've created content every single day on social media since January 1st, 2019. So that's like well over 2,000 days of daily posting. And along the lines of that, another one of my habits within my overall social media habit regimen is every single day I am commenting on a bunch of people's posts that are within my fitness niche. And in return, they're commenting on my stuff. These are people that I've never met in my life that are all over the world, but that are also interested in fitness. So even though we've never met, they're definitely like online friends in that way where we keep in touch and literally see each other's stuff every single day for 2,000 days plus. So we know a heck of a lot about each other despite never having met. So I have those friends. And then I also have friends that I see in real life and we interact on social media that are just like personal friends of mine, whether in Dallas or Los Angeles or Austin. And I've actually formed something in Austin with a friend of mine called the Creator League, where we get together as creators in Austin. We just kind of brainstorm ideas, we collaborate, we help each other execute on the various videos that we have in mind. And I actually ended up going to Los Angeles with some of them to an event called VidCon this past June that is like an amazing event to learn all of the tips and tricks behind optimal content creation. And then in so doing, you end up meeting tons of other people passionate about the content.
Yeah, that's lovely. I just actually had someone who was on this podcast. Their episode hasn't been released yet. By the time you listen to this episode, their episode will be released. But her and I were just talking about the similar thing of kind of putting together just like a virtual group, because it can feel lonely if you're laid off or trying to just get your foot started in content creation, where we would just have this virtual group of like a network to support you, bounce ideas off of, think about how to execute, things like that. And then ideally the same thing, right? You're commenting, you're liking, you're keeping each other supported. And I know her, but only virtually. So you kind of expand your network and it can be a really cool thing. And I did see your pictures about going to that event. I wanted to ask about that, but I'll ask about that another time because I'm super curious about that for my own personal gain.
For sure.
So with all of this, we talk about life pivots, and that's kind of what this podcast is all about, right? Pivoting, getting laid off, kind of making that change. Do you think this is a pivot point for you as well? Or I know you're looking for a job, you want to get back into it, you're focusing on bodybuilding right now, but is this a pivot point? And then is your next pivot point when you start to have a family? And what does that look like? Will you still do all of these things when you have a lot less time?
Yeah, it's a totally fair question. And I do believe that this has been a pivot point that has been extended far longer than I thought it would, because it's like I got the first layoff notice in October. And so that was kind of the beginning of a pivot of sorts where I really did start to go all in on the various passions that I've talked about. And I really truly believed that I was going to get a new job at Microsoft. That happened, but then that was taken away again. And so it's kind of like I've never even had a long stint back in corporate working since October of last year. And so for all intents and purposes, I'm now at like 8 or 9 months of doing life in just extremely different way than I was before. And the closest period of my life to this current one is the 6 months leading up to my full-time job at Microsoft. I kind of took like a mini sabbatical or like a break between college and working, where I just built my own businesses for 6 months. And it was like the most fulfilling 6 months of my life up to that point, because I got to experience the power of being all in on me, on my entrepreneurial endeavors. And now I'm at like 9 months of doing exactly that and having even more fun, even more success with it, and just really validating that, okay, in the long term, I know for a fact that I'm only going to work for myself because I just enjoy it so much more. But all that said, still very open to finding that job that's the right fit out there in corporate. But I think because of going through now 9 months of just fully instilling confidence in myself that I can and will do this, I'm not desperate at all for another job. So it's like if something doesn't come my way that is like a perfect fit, I'm not going to take it. So it's a good spot to be in that I feel very blessed and privileged to be in. Oh
That's
yeah, then to
great.
answer your other question about like if the next pivot point is marriage, I would say that will definitely be a pivot point. It's just like impossible to know if there will be other pivot points before then. Because yeah, realistically, won't want to put as much time into the things that I currently am when I'm in that position. I'm like, even in small circumstances where I have been dating multiple times in a given week or a given month, it's like I find myself being like, man, I need to like reallot my time because I want to be putting more time into this dating thing. And so I know that once I have my forever partner, it'll be even more so that way.
Right. Well, one last question, I'll say to kind of wrap it up is we could have a whole separate podcast around, the finances and how you have passive income and at what point you decide this is enough and this is enough for me to step away from my full-time job, type of decisions that you make. But is there any advice that you could give or anything that you could share around you said you're comfortable. You have passive income or you have other income streams that you utilize. So you don't necessarily need a job. And I don't know how old you are, but if you graduated only,
29.
6 or 7 years ago, you're 29. Okay. So we're the same age. I'm 30. I hate saying that, but I'm 30. And what advice would you give to people? Get started now. How long did it take you in order to get to a point where you were like, yeah, I realistically don't need a full-time job because I have this other income?
Yeah. So 2018 was the year that I launched my own business. And during the 7, or I guess it would have been 9 months of 2018 that I was running the business from March through end of December of 2018, I made decent money, but not enough to like live comfortably. It wasn't until 2019 that like that calendar year, pretty much every month I was making enough money that fully could sustain myself, didn't need a job. And halfway through that year is actually when I started at Microsoft. And one thing that I was very proud of is that the month I started at Microsoft, I literally made more from my own business than I did from my Microsoft salary. So it was like a huge validation, like, okay, this thing that I built up over the last 6 months leading up to my corporate job paid off. And so to answer your question about like, how should you start? When should you start? Definitely start as soon as humanly possible. It's like, especially if you were either laid off or you're currently working a job where you have any fears of being laid off, you will never be layoff proof, but you can become resilient to a layoff via having a separate income stream or multiple income streams. And so most people that aren't maybe quote unquote naturally entrepreneurial don't necessarily know like how or when or why or whatever to start a business. And the thing that I would say is the best way that you can go about that is identifying what in your life you are either the very most passionate about or the very most knowledgeable about, or both, because those things will enable you to enjoy what you're doing and to add value to others' lives. For me, it was just a very natural no-brainer. Like, fitness is the thing in my life that differentiates me from most people. The other thing is a lot of people will still have some sort of like an imposter syndrome around that, where they're like, I don't know if I'm like ready or qualified or capable of running a business in any sort of like product or service industry. And the thing I would say there is that all that you need in the service industry is to be like one single step ahead of where someone else is, because that like knowledge gap is a value add, and you inherently can close that gap for other people. And that is a monetizable business. Similarly, in the product world, you just need something that solves a problem that is in a unique or different way or branded differently or what have you, that just solves something meaningful in other people's lives. As long as you can achieve one of those things, you can start a business. It's just a matter of actually taking the action to do so.
I think that's great advice. So I appreciate you sharing that. A last question I always ask everyone who joins the podcast is, are you open to people connecting with you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. I pretty much accept every LinkedIn request except for ones that are from people that are claiming to be like Harvard recruiters with one follower living in the Philippines. And I'm just like, that's not real.
So if you're not claiming to be a Harvard recruiter living in the Philippines and only have one follower, feel free to connect with Patrick. If you're a Catholic girl and you happen to be into the gym or content creation, not OnlyFans, please also connect with Patrick, because 2026 is coming up and it's going to be his year of more time.
And you don't got to wait till 2026 to reach out.
That's it for today's episode of the Reboot Era. If you're on the job hunt, don't forget my collab with jobhire.ai. You can get 30% off on all plans through August 2025 with the code DRAY30, DRAY30. Check the footer of this episode for the details to make sure you get your promo. Huge thanks to Patrick Lyons for showing us that resilience isn't just about bouncing back. It's about building a life so full that a job loss can't shake it. If you want to follow Patrick's journey, learn from his fitness expertise, or just enjoy his brand of entertaining, educational, and inspiring content, check out the links in the show notes to connect with him on LinkedIn, Instagram, and more. And as always, if you found value in this episode, share it with a friend who needs a reminder that a pivot can be the best thing that ever happened to them. Until next time, keep rebooting, keep creating, and keep owning your own story.